Hello everyone. Have you ever received a phone call on a quiet Sunday morning that made your heart stop for a second? I have. And it wasn't just anyone calling, it was my lawyer. His voice wasn't calm, wasn't professional. It was urgent, almost afraid. He said, "Do not eat the food your wife cooked. Take it to a lab. Now." In that moment, the warmth of my home turned into something else entirely. And what I discovered next shattered everything I thought I knew. My name is Adrian, and this is the most disturbing chapter of my life. Before I continue, make sure you support stories like this by liking and subscribing, so I can keep bringing you powerful real-life drama. And tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I want to see how far this story travels. Sunday morning was supposed to be peaceful. Golden sunlight filtered through the dining room curtains. The smell of my wife Larissa's homemade chicken soup filled the house we had shared for 5 years. The table was perfectly set. 2 bowls, 2 spoons, and her warm smile that always made me feel like the luckiest man alive. I had just pulled out my chair when my phone vibrated. The name on the screen made me frown. Mr. Rahmath, lawyer. 7:12 a.m. On a Sunday. This wasn't normal. A few months ago, I had been involved in a minor business dispute with a former partner, but it was practically resolved. Or at least that's what I believed. I answered casually, "Good morning, sir." His voice didn't match the day. It was tight, fast, controlled but barely. "Adrian, listen to me carefully. Do not eat anything your wife prepared this morning." I actually let out a small laugh. "Excuse me? It's just chicken soup. Do not eat it. Put it in a sealed container and take it to the laboratory address I'm about to send you." Immediately, my heart began to pound. "Sir, what is going on?" A pause. Then he lowered his voice. "We uncovered something during the final document review of your last transaction. There is a life insurance policy under your name, a very large one, and you didn't file it." My fingers tightened around the phone. "What do you mean? I never signed anything like that." "The sole beneficiary," he continued carefully, "is your wife." The room suddenly felt smaller. I slowly lifted my eyes. Laris was sitting across from me, smiling softly, pushing the bowl toward me. "Eat before it gets cold," she said gently. My throat went dry. "Sir, there must be some mistake." "Adrian," his voice sharpened, "we also found purchase records of a certain chemical. The billing address matches your home." The word chemical echoed in my mind. I felt a cold wave crawl down my spine. This made no sense. Laris had stood by me when my business nearly collapsed. She cried with me when my father passed away. She held my hand when I doubted myself. This couldn't be real. And yet my lawyer had never sounded like this before. "I have to hang up," he said. "Do exactly as I told you. Do not confront her." "Not yet." The line went dead. I remained frozen, staring at my phone. "Who was that?" Laris asked. I forced a smile. "Just something minor." My hand reached for the spoon. Steam rose gently from the soup. A few minutes ago it smelled comforting. Now it smelled unfamiliar. Was I being paranoid? Or had I been blind? Inside my head, 2 voices battled each other. One told me this was ridiculous. The other whispered that my life might be balanced on an invisible edge. I looked at her again. Her expression was calm, loving, completely at ease. If she was hiding something, she was incredibly good at it. And in that moment I had to choose. Trust the woman I loved with all my heart, or trust the warning that might save my life. The spoon stopped just inches from my lips. And I made a decision that would change everything. I lowered the spoon. Not dramatically, not suspiciously, just slowly enough to look natural. I forced a small chuckle and placed my hand over my stomach. "Actually, I don't feel great," I said. "Maybe I'll eat later." Laris tilted her head, concern instantly washing over her face. "You were fine 5 minutes ago." "Yeah, I know. Must be something I ate last night." She studied me for a second too long. That was the first time in 5 years I noticed how observant she was. Not lovingly observant. Calculating. "I can make you some tea instead," she offered gently. "That would be nice." She stood and walked toward the kitchen. I watched her every step, every movement. My heart was beating so loudly I was sure she could hear it from across the room. As soon as she disappeared behind the wall, I moved. I grabbed both bowls, the one meant for me and the one in front of her. If this was a misunderstanding, fine. But if it wasn't, I needed certainty. I poured my untouched soup into a sealed glass container we used for leftovers. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. Then something caught my eye. Her bowl. It looked identical. But it wasn't. There were tiny green flakes floating in mine that weren't in hers. I froze. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe seasoning settled differently. Maybe I was losing my mind. But I couldn't ignore it. I scooped a small portion from her bowl into a second container. Footsteps. I snapped the lid shut just as she re-entered with a cup of tea. "You're sweating," she said softly. "I just feel off." She set the tea down and gently touched my forehead. Her hand was warm, familiar, loving. "You're not warm." Her eyes searched mine. And for a split second, just a flicker, I saw something I had never seen before. Not love. Not concern. Expectation. "Maybe I should lie down," I said. "That's a good idea," she replied quickly. Too quickly. I picked up the tea but didn't drink it. Instead, I stood up, holding my phone tightly in my pocket. "I'll rest upstairs." She nodded. "Call me if you need anything." If you need anything. Her voice sounded the same. But my world didn't. Upstairs, I locked the bedroom door. I immediately texted Mr. Rahmath. "I have the samples." His reply came within seconds. "Good. Leave the house calmly. Tell her you're going to the pharmacy. Bring both samples. Do not consume anything she gives you. Both samples." I stared at that message. So he suspected the same thing I did. I took a deep breath, grabbed my jacket, and walked back downstairs. Laris was in the kitchen again, humming softly. "I'm going to grab some medicine," I said casually. "I can go for you," she replied instantly. "No, it's fine. I need some air." She stepped closer to me. Too close. "You're sure?" Her eyes locked onto mine. For 5 years, those eyes were my safe place. Now they felt like questions I couldn't answer. "I'll be back soon," I said. She smiled. It was perfect. Too perfect. As I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, the air felt colder than it should have. My hands tightened around the containers inside my bag. Inside that house was the woman I loved. Inside my bag was a possibility I was afraid to name. When I got into my car, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my lawyer. "Adrian, there's something else. The policy was updated 3 days ago." Updated. My chest tightened. Updated how? I typed back. The response came slowly this time. The payout value doubled. I couldn't breathe. 3 days ago. 3 days ago, Laris had surprised me with my favorite dinner. She lit candles. She told me she loved me more than ever. 3 days ago. My hands gripped the steering wheel as a terrifying thought formed in my mind. Was this planned? Was I living inside a script I didn't know existed? And the most haunting question of all, if I had eaten that soup, what would have happened by tonight? I started the engine, and as I drove toward the laboratory address blinking on my phone screen, I realized something even more disturbing. This was real. Then the person waiting for me at home wasn't just my wife anymore. She was a mystery. And I was about to uncover the truth. The laboratory building stood cold and silent at the end of a narrow street, its glass doors reflecting a distorted version of me, pale, tense, no longer certain of anything. I sat in my car for a full minute before stepping out, gripping the insulated bag that held the 2 containers like it held my fate. Inside, the air smelled sterile and sharp. A technician in a white coat greeted me with professional calm. Mr. Rahmath had clearly called ahead. "Mr. Adrian?" she asked. I nodded. "Please follow me." Every step down that bright hallway felt heavier than the last. I handed over the containers without speaking. My voice didn't trust itself. "We'll prioritize the analysis," she assured me. "It may take a few hours for preliminary results." Few hours. I stepped outside again, the sun now high in the sky, mocking the storm inside my chest. I checked my phone. 5 missed calls. All from Laris. A message followed. "Are you okay? You've been gone a while." "I'm worried." Worried. The word twisted inside me. I typed back slowly. Pharmacy was crowded. I'm grabbing coffee. Be home soon. 3 dots appeared instantly. Okay. I made you something light to eat when you get back. Something light. My pulse spiked. I locked my phone and leaned back against the car. My mind replayed everything from the past few months. Small moments I had ignored. Her sudden insistence that I update my financial records. Her questions about my business contracts. The night she casually asked, "If something ever happened to you, would everything automatically come to me?" At the time I laughed. Now the memory felt like a warning I failed to hear. 2 hours later my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Mr. Adrian? It was the technician. Yes. There was a pause. The first sample shows traces of a substance that should not be present in food. My entire body went rigid. What kind of substance? It's not lethal in small quantities, she continued carefully, but in higher concentrations it could cause severe organ stress. Repeated exposure would be extremely dangerous. Repeated exposure. My heart pounded in my ears. And the second sample? I asked, my voice barely audible. The second sample does not contain it. Silence swallowed me whole. So you're saying? I swallowed hard. Only one bowl had it? Yes. My knees nearly gave out. Only my bowl. Not hers. Not both. Just mine. The world blurred for a second. Cars passed behind me. People walked by. Life continued. Completely unaware that mine had just split into before and after. Are you certain? I whispered. We ran it twice. Twice. I ended the call slowly. For 5 years I trusted her with my heart. For 5 years I believed we were building a future together. And today I discovered that only my bowl was different. My phone buzzed again. A message from Laris. I miss you. Come home soon. Miss you. I stared at those words. Was she sitting at our dining table right now? Was she glancing at the clock? Was she wondering why I hadn't eaten? Or was she wondering why I was still standing? A darker thought crept in. What if this wasn't the first time? What if there were other mornings, other meals, small doses too subtle to notice? Suddenly, the unexplained fatigue over the past few weeks made sense. The headaches. The dizziness I blamed on stress. I felt sick. Not from the soup. From the betrayal. My phone rang again. This time it was Mr. Rahmeth. I just got off the phone with the lab, he said. You heard? Yes. His voice softened. Adrian, this changes things. I don't understand, I whispered. Why would she do this? We're not struggling. We're not fighting. There's more, he said quietly. My heart dropped again. The insurance policy wasn't the only thing updated 3 days ago. What else? There was a second document filed. A property transfer draft. If something were to happen to you unexpectedly, full ownership of your company shares would immediately convert to her name. No waiting period. My vision darkened at the edges. Company shares. The business I built from nothing. The long nights. The sacrifices. And Adrian, he continued. I braced myself. She recently contacted a financial advisor. She inquired about liquidating large assets quickly. Liquidating. Quickly. This wasn't an emotional decision. It was calculated. Planned. Strategic. I looked down at my wedding ring. It suddenly felt heavier than ever before. Do I confront her? I asked. No, he replied firmly. Not yet. We need more evidence. You need to act normal. Act normal. As if I hadn't just learned that the woman who kissed me goodbye every morning may have been preparing for my absence. I got back into my car, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Home. I had to go home. But as I drove back toward the life I thought I knew, one question echoed louder than the rest. If today's dose wasn't enough, when was she planning to make sure it would be? When was she planning to make sure it would be? That question echoed in my mind the entire drive home, looping over and over like a warning siren I couldn't silence. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, but inside everything was shaking. I parked across the street instead of in the driveway. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Or fear. From inside the car, I stared at the house that once felt like safety. The curtains moved slightly. A shadow passed by the window. Was she watching for me? My phone buzzed. A message from Laris. Are you close? I'm getting worried. Worried. The word felt different now. Colder. I stepped out of the car and walked to the front door, forcing my breathing to slow down. By the time I turned the key and entered, I had already put on my mask. "There you are," she said softly, appearing from the kitchen. "You look pale." "I feel better," I lied. "Just needed air." Her eyes scanned my face carefully, like she was searching for something. A reaction. A symptom. "I made you some porridge," she said. "Something light." My heart skipped. Of course she did. "That's thoughtful," I replied, keeping my voice even. She smiled and walked back toward the kitchen. I followed every step measured. On the counter sat a small bowl. Steam rising. Spoon ready. "Eat a little," she encouraged gently. "You didn't eat breakfast." I sat down. The room felt too quiet. I picked up the spoon, holding it just like I had that morning. She leaned casually against the counter, watching me. Waiting. I brought the spoon halfway to my mouth, then paused. "You're not eating?" she asked. "I just remembered," I said lightly, lowering it again. "The pharmacist told me not to eat for at least an hour after taking the medicine." Her expression froze. Just for a fraction of a second. Then she nodded. "Oh, of course." Silence stretched between us. She walked over, picked up the bowl, and without hesitation carried it to the sink, and poured it out. Every last drop. I stared at the swirling contents disappearing down the drain. She didn't even suggest saving it. Didn't taste it herself. Didn't hesitate. "I'll make fresh later," she said sweetly. Fresh. A chill ran through me. "Actually," I said carefully, "maybe we should go out tonight. It's been a while." Her eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yeah. Dinner somewhere nice." For a brief moment, something unreadable flickered in her gaze. Surprise? Adjustment? Calculation? "That sounds wonderful," she replied. "Wonderful." I nodded and stood up. "I have some emails to answer." Upstairs, I closed the bedroom door and immediately called Mr. Rahmeth. "She poured it out," I whispered. "Without tasting it?" "Yes." A pause. "That's consistent," he said. "With what?" I demanded. "With someone ensuring there's no cross-contamination." The word hit me hard. Cross-contamination. Like this was a laboratory experiment, not a marriage. "We need to understand motive," he continued. "Money is one possibility, but sometimes there's more." More. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the framed photo on the nightstand. Our honeymoon. Smiling. Arms wrapped around each other. Ocean behind us. Was any of it real? Or was I just an investment waiting to mature? Downstairs, I heard her humming again. The same melody from that morning. Soft. Calm. Patient. I opened my banking app. There it was. A pending transfer request I hadn't noticed before. Initiated yesterday. A large amount set to move into a joint account we rarely used. Authorization required my final approval. I hadn't approved anything. I felt my stomach tighten. She was preparing. Not emotionally. Financially. My phone vibrated again. This time it wasn't my lawyer. It was a notification from my home security system. Front door opened. I froze. I hadn't heard her leave. I walked quietly to the window. Laris was getting into her car. Alone. Where was she going? And why didn't she tell me? I grabbed my keys without thinking. This was a performance. Then I needed to see what happened behind the curtain. Because one thing was certain now. Whatever she was planning, it was already in motion. It was already in motion. And for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't living inside a marriage. I was standing inside a strategy. I waited 10 seconds after Laris's car disappeared from view before starting mine. My hands were steady now. Not because I was calm, but because something inside me had shifted. Fear was turning into focus. I kept a safe distance behind her car as she drove across town. She didn't head toward the supermarket. Not toward a friend's house. Not toward any place she had ever mentioned. She drove downtown. Into the financial district. My chest tightened. Glass towers reflected the afternoon sun as she pulled into the underground parking of a sleek corporate building. I slowed down, parking across the street where I could still see the entrance. I watched her step out of the car. She wasn't dressed casually anymore. She had changed. A fitted blazer. Heels. Hair perfectly styled. This wasn't a random errand. This was a meeting. I checked the building directory displayed near the entrance from across the street. Investment firms. Legal consultants. Asset management offices. My phone vibrated. A message from Mr. Rahmath. We found something else. My pulse jumped. What? His reply came quickly. 2 weeks ago, Laris requested certified copies of your company's founding documents. I stared at the screen. Why would she need those? Unless. Another message arrived before I could respond. And she scheduled a private consultation with a corporate restructuring advisor. Same building you just described earlier. My throat went dry. She's inside, I typed back. Then we're closer than we thought. Closer to what? The truth? Or the edge? I stepped out of my car, pretending to check my phone while moving closer to the entrance. Through the glass doors, I saw her speaking to a receptionist. She looked confident, comfortable, like she belonged there. The receptionist handed her a visitor badge. Lara smiled, that same soft, familiar smile, and walked toward the elevators. I felt like I was watching a stranger wearing my wife's face. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a notification from our joint email account. Subject line: Asset Transition Strategy Draft Proposal. My vision blurred for a second. I opened it immediately. It was a summary. If I were to become medically incapacitated, temporary authority over all financial and corporate decisions would automatically transfer to her. Medically incapacitated. The words echoed in my head like a cold whisper. Not deceased. Incapacitated. That meant prolonged control. Gradual. Quiet. Clean. I leaned against the wall, struggling to breathe evenly. Was this her plan? Not something sudden. Something slow. Something that would leave me weakened, dependent, unable to question. And she would step in as the devoted wife handling everything. The narrative would be perfect. Concerned spouse. Responsible partner. Tragic situation. No suspicion. Just sympathy. My phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Mr. Adrian? A male voice. Smooth. Professional. Yes. This is Daniel from Westbridge Advisory. I believe your wife is currently in a meeting here regarding your shared assets. My heart stopped. How did you get my number? She provided it as secondary authorization contact. However, we noticed that the restructuring draft requires your direct signature. I swallowed. And there are unusual urgency clauses included. We wanted to verify them personally. Unusual urgency. She said you were experiencing recurring health episodes, he continued. She expressed concern that your condition may worsen. My condition? So that was the story. I'm perfectly healthy, I said slowly. Silence. I see, Daniel replied carefully. In that case, you may want to review the documents before anything proceeds. The call ended. I looked back at the building entrance. The woman inside was constructing a future. One where I was fragile, unstable, perhaps unable to speak for myself. My phone vibrated again. A message from Laris. Where are you? I came out for something quick. I'll be home soon. Quick. I stared at the building. She was still inside. She had lied without hesitation. And suddenly something clicked. This wasn't panic-driven. This wasn't emotional. This was meticulous. Every step documented. Every move legally framed. And if I hadn't received that call on Sunday morning, I would have walked straight into the role she was writing for me. I got back into my car slowly. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the city. And as I watched the elevator lights move inside that glass tower, one terrifying realization settled deep in my chest. I wasn't just uncovering a betrayal. I was uncovering a version of my future where I slowly disappeared. And she inherited everything. And she inherited everything. That was the future she was building, carefully, legally, patiently. A future where I faded into weakness, and she stepped forward as the devoted wife who carried the burden. I watched the building in trance until she finally emerged. Her posture was relaxed, confident. She checked her phone, typed something, then walked to her car. A second later, my phone vibrated. Heading home now. Miss you. Miss you. The words felt almost theatrical now. I waited until she drove off before starting my engine. This time I didn't follow her closely. I needed space to think. By the time I arrived home, she was already inside. When I opened the door, she was in the living room, scrolling on her tablet like nothing extraordinary had happened that day. "You're back," she said warmly. "So are you," I replied, studying her face. She smiled. "Just ran a quick errand. Downtown," I asked casually, placing my keys on the table. Her fingers paused just slightly on the tablet screen. "Yeah," she answered. "Picked up some documents." "Documents?" I walked closer. "From a financial advisory firm?" Her eyes lifted slowly to meet mine. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she didn't immediately smile. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. "I mean Westbridge Advisory," I said, my voice steady. "The corporate restructuring meeting. The urgency clauses. The medical incapacitation plan." Silence flooded the room. The air between us felt heavy charged. Her expression didn't collapse. It changed. The warmth faded. The softness thinned. "You followed me," she said quietly. "I verified," I corrected. A long pause. Then she did something I never expected. She laughed. Not loudly. Not hysterically. Just a slow, controlled exhale of amusement. "I was wondering how long it would take," she said. My stomach dropped. "So it's true," I whispered. She set the tablet down carefully, almost ceremonially. "You were never supposed to find out like this." The calmness in her voice chilled me more than anger ever could. "Find out what?" I demanded. "That you were planning to weaken me? That you updated a massive insurance policy? That you drafted asset control behind my back?" Her eyes locked onto mine. "I was protecting myself." "From what?" I shot back. "From you." The words hit me harder than anything else so far. "From me." I echoed in disbelief. "You think I didn't see it?" she continued, standing up now. "The business risks. The debts you hide behind optimism. The deals that could collapse overnight. If your company falls, everything falls with it." "That doesn't justify this," I said, my voice rising despite myself. "You call it betrayal," she replied coolly. "I call it contingency." "Contingency? Like our marriage was a contract." "You altered food," I said quietly. She froze. For the first time. I saw it. Crack. "You tested it," she said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes." A slow inhale. "It wasn't meant to harm you," she said carefully. "It was to prove a point." "What point?" My heart pounded. "That you're not invincible." I stared at her, unable to process the logic. "You've been ignoring your health," she continued. "Stress. Sleepless nights. High pressure. I needed leverage to force you to slow down. To step back." "By putting something in my food?" I asked, my voice trembling. "It was controlled," she insisted. "Measured." "Measured. Like dosage. Like timing." "You don't get to experiment on me," I said. Her jaw tightened. "And you don't get to drag me down with your risks," she shot back. The room felt like it was shrinking around us. "So this was about control," I said slowly. "It was about security," she corrected. "For who?" "For both of us." "No," I said, shaking my head. "For you." Her silence was confirmation. The mask wasn't just slipping. It was gone. Standing in front of me wasn't the woman from our honeymoon photo. It was someone strategic, defensive, prepared to secure her future, no matter what it cost mine. "And the insurance?" I asked quietly. She held my gaze. "Backup." The word echoed in the silence. Backup. Not love. Not partnership. Backup. I stepped back, feeling something inside me finally settle. Not fear, not confusion. Clarity. "I trusted you," I said. "And I adapted," she replied. There it was. No apology. No denial. Just strategy. The sun had fully set outside, darkness pressing against the windows. 5 years of memories stood between us like fragile glass. And I realized something terrifyingly simple. The woman I loved hadn't suddenly changed. She had simply revealed who she always was when the stakes became high enough. And now I had to decide. Was I going to remain a piece in her plan? Or was I about to make a move she never saw coming? Or was I about to make a move she never saw coming? I didn't answer her immediately. The silence between us felt like the final seconds of a chess match, when both players know the board has changed forever. You think this is strategy? I said quietly. You think marriage is about leverage? She crossed her arms. Not defensive. Composed. Marriage is about survival, she replied. And I refused to be the naive one. Naive. The word stung more than I expected. For years I believed trust was strength. She believed trust was risk. Two completely different philosophies living under the same roof. I need some air, I said finally. She didn't stop me. She didn't apologize. She simply watched me walk out the front door, as if calculating the next phase. But this time I wasn't reacting. I was planning. That night I didn't go to a hotel. I went to my office. The building was dark, almost empty. I sat alone in the conference room where I had built my company from nothing but ambition and stubborn belief. And for the first time in weeks my mind was clear. If she wanted contingency, I would show her preparation. I called Mr. Rahmath. It's time, I said. For what? He asked. To restructure everything. The next 48 hours were a blur of legal documents, emergency meetings, and silent decisions. I transferred temporary operational authority of my company into a blind trust, one that required 3 independent board signatures for any major liquidation. I froze the joint secondary account pending review. I revoked all unsigned restructuring drafts. And most importantly, I updated my will. Not out of anger, out of awareness. When I returned home 2 days later, Laris was waiting in the living room. You disappeared, she said calmly. I was working, I replied. Her eyes studied me again. Something had shifted. She could feel it. What did you do? She asked. Exactly what you did, I answered evenly. I protected myself. A long silence. You moved the assets, she said. Yes. You cut me out. No, I corrected. I removed unilateral control. Her jaw tightened slightly. You don't trust me. I looked at her carefully. That's not what happened here. Another silence. Then something unexpected happened. Her composure cracked. Not dramatically, but subtly. You were supposed to understand, she said softly. I was thinking ahead. At my expense. At our survival, she insisted. I shook my head slowly. Survival built on manipulation isn't survival. It's control. Her eyes glistened. Not with tears of guilt but frustration. You forced this, she whispered. No, I replied. You revealed it. The truth sat heavily between us. For the first time since this began, neither of us was strategizing. We were just two people standing in the aftermath of exposed intentions. I loved you, I said quietly. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she asked the question that told me everything. What happens now? Not can we fix this? Not are you okay? What happens now? Like we were closing a business deal. I filed for legal separation this morning, I said calmly. The words hung in the air. This time she did react. Her eyes widened, not in heartbreak, in shock. You wouldn't, she said. I already did. Silence. A long final silence. You're overreacting, she whispered. Am I? I asked. Or did I finally stop underreacting? She looked away. And in that moment I understood something powerful. She never expected me to move first. She never expected me to move decisively. She believed I would doubt myself longer. She miscalculated. Not my intelligence. My breaking point. I won't fight you publicly, I said. No scandal. No destruction. But I will not live as someone's contingency plan. She didn't argue. Because deep down she knew. The game had ended. And for the first time since that Sunday morning phone call, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Control. Not over her. Not over the situation. Over myself. As I walked upstairs to pack a bag, one final realization settled into my chest. The most dangerous betrayals don't always come with shouting or chaos. Sometimes they come with a warm smile, a perfectly set table, and a bowl of soup you're not meant to question. Conclusion: the moral. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. Love without transparency becomes strategy. Trust without boundaries becomes vulnerability. Never ignore your instincts when something feels off, even if it comes wrapped in kindness. Because sometimes the call that saves your life doesn't come from inside your home. It comes from someone warning you to look closer. And when you do, be ready to choose yourself.